Good afternoon, HubSpot friends. We are here for maybe my already. I know it's going to be my most favorite unboxing of all time. I've been wanting to talk to Jeff Vincent about just having a conversation about the HubSpot data model. It's been on my mind a lot because so many new things have happened over the past couple years, and it's hard to find people who understand all of the objects that are at their fingertips right now. So we're here with Mr. Jeff Vincent uh, to help us understand where we've been and where we want to go. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm great now. I mean, what an intro. I can only let you down. It's good to be having this conversation with you, Chris. I'm excited.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. And before we dive into the tool, I was like to spend a little bit of time on theory and meaning behind things. Let's start with like there's a lot of objects in HubSpot now. Uh, why? And I'll be
That's
back
a
in
great
30
question.
minutes to check on you.
There's there's so many ways we could take that one. I think like there's two that come to mind. One is I still talk to so many people who, in order to give me a full picture of what's going on, they have to open roughly 4 different tools, 15 different tabs. Oops, they forgot this login. Oh, only I have access to this and my teammates don't have access to that. Manage permissions and all these different apps, all this stuff, just to put a picture together of what's going on with our business. And yeah, I mean, all of us walk around with a ton in our heads, but the number of what I would call like RevOps people, GTM people, who have both in their head the impact that they want to have on the business, their dream for a creative campaign or a customer that they really want to get in front of, how they're going to get promoted. Another thing they've got in their head is this like wacky spaghetti diagram of how all the data fits together, and they have these trust scores on all the data and how it all flows into all these different systems. And oh god, it's so much. And I really hope that we can help people unify it in HubSpot so that more people can be saying, if it's not in HubSpot, it's not real. And also, once we get it together, I can in HubSpot, I can use it. Like I know I have the tools at my disposal to solve a problem, dig into an opportunity, whatever. So I think that's one. Maybe the other thing I'd say on that, on all the objects, is I also see a lot of people who are jamming a lot of data into the objects we do give you. Uh,
Like
and it
deals?
creates sort of a different flavor of the same problem. Now they have a spaghetti diagram, but it's how it works inside HubSpot.
Oh, like the
Um,
25 stage deals because we're managing the entirety of the business process, like in this one object.
that's right. And so it creates a real challenge. It means that anybody that you're trying to bring into HubSpot and then have them do some kind of downstream task, like, hey, report on how this part is going, you got to give them like a laundry list of gotchas and workarounds and little things they have to do to get at the data. And we've had that challenge that you and I have talked about many times before about how a property can only hold one value at a time. So if it's something that happens multiple times, kind of smushing it into objects. Anyway, so we've learned a ton of lessons over the last couple of years, built ourselves an awful lot of infrastructure to make supporting more objects possible. Um,
And you've
I,
been,
I would say we're not done yet, but I also, and we will get to this, but I also don't want to end up with a mess.
right. Yeah. And you've been in SaaS for a while. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've always been in SaaS, really.
Okay. Why? Because I've been learning a lot lately, trying to understand, adoption rates, why they've been so low for CRM forever, digital transformation. Um, One of the, I think, secondary impacts that I was hopeful for that AI is causing is we're seeing more and more people coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, I guess it's time to get to clean data." They're not saying it's because of AI, but I can only imagine that's why it's increasing right now. Because guess what? AI needs full context, which means data needs to be good. And we'll get to how that plays in here. But when we talk about unified view of the customer and creating that unified view, why has that been so hard? Like for the industry as a whole?
Oh, man. Well, another really easy question. I mean, I think you're right though to connect those two dots of historical adoption challenge and complete picture. And I think people are messy. People forget. People don't want to do. I mean, the CRM adoption has always been a little bit of non-critical path, I guess I would say. So you hear from sales teams all the time that are like, I'm being asked to put in data that I'm never going to use. It's not really, it doesn't help me close the deal, right? So while I want to do it, if I'm doing it perfectly and then I don't hit my quota, they're not going to say, good job putting in all that data. We're going to keep you. It doesn't help me with my paycheck. So that's a real people problem that I don't think you solve at scale with education, with incentives. We've certainly gone a bit down the road in terms of good data around rules and validations. People have deployed workflows that close these gaps, but AI presents us an opportunity to say, you know what, Chris and Jeff, you guys just talk. I'm going to try to structure the data, and it's going to come out crystal clean. What it might not always come out is accurate. And I think the thing that's happened maybe just this year, and we're really seeing it start to click, is it's getting pretty accurate. And that's a real unlock when it's significantly better than forcing a rep with incentives to put in the right data. That's where the tipping point happens.
And I'll just throw this out there because I'm trying hard not to just immediately like sprint down AI road with you. But if you have thoughts that you want to go over with that, it's super interesting conversation. So just let me know if you want to do it like the next 30 minutes focused on that. Because it's a big deal and everybody needs to be understanding. That's why I personally have like I've focused with clients. Like I feel safe in that focus, like the data model. Like it doesn't matter what we build, like AI will be able to build stuff but if you don't understand your data model and present a complete picture, right? You're not going to be able to leverage like AI. And um so I want to put this theory past you because uh these adoption rates and this why haven't we gotten to this picture? And it's why when we think about data models, it's, and especially installation of HubSpot within a system, right? We get into these this or that conversations because this only one place can be the source of truth, right? And it's looking like historically it's been the place where the money is, right? The ERPs, the accounting, and those places literally are not built to show sales and marketing stuff. So they can't be like the source, they can't be the unified view of the customer. But then we don't trust all these other systems to manage revenue. And we haven't even been able to put the data over there. That's like one of my favorite spots about HubSpot right now is like, yeah, we're not replacing accounting systems, but we can still have an invoice record with information in it. And now the whole team can see that picture. So like how how are you guys seeing people like because so often we have to kind of unravel some industry standard practices to be able to even consider adding this data to HubSpot. How have you guys, or maybe you've seen the partner ecosystem, or you know, how do we help the community overcome some of those? Oh, we're supposed to do it this way.
A great question. You also gave me about 20 other things in there that I would love to get into. So you're turning this into a weekly really quick, Chris.
Don't tempt me. You
for
know I will take you up on that.
for SMB, I on the smaller side, I don't think there's going to be a challenge. I think as soon as they get that unlock moment of like, wait a minute, I was spending a lot of time doing this, and I just got a recommendation that looks exactly like what I would have done. Let's put these two pieces of data together. Like, how do I get that? And what they probably needed was HubSpot's integration ecosystem, and also some of the, I'll call it like permissions, some of the info that we've put together so that you can bring in data and say, nobody should touch this. I just want it there for context, essentially. You put those two pieces together, I think SMB is going to be great. Upmarket, I think the partners actually are the way, because to your point, a lot of this unlock is going to be cool idea. Now I have to go unravel 20 years and 50 people to really make that data accessible. I think at least some of these companies are going to have that sort of existential crisis, that outside caused crisis of, look at this competitor moving a lot faster than us. They're getting to the right customers that are in market. How are they finding those prospects before we get in? How are they setting the parameters of the deal every time? And what they're going to find is people are leveraging maybe high value intent data signals better. Maybe they're doing a better job of defining their ICP and then running lead definition like through a more robust ICP filter. I don't know what it's going to be for everybody, but that's when they're going to have to come to the table and say, cool, these capabilities have been out there for a while. We've been using them at the edges, having ChatGPT or whatever write our emails or our press releases or something. But how do we really dig into unlocking our data? One of the things that we're working on is trying to turn unstructured data into something that you can use as insights. And I think that's going to be unlocked for so many people. Take all that email that's been flowing through HubSpot and you maybe haven't even been paying attention to it, and have it suddenly prompting you with follow-up, with insight, with we can run it through a semantic layer to understand, what is the sentiment here. There's so much cool stuff, and once somebody finds that rabbit hole to go down, I think they're going to be all in.
Yeah, I feel like I've been noticing. I mean, it feels like Breeze and some of the AI tools are starting, like, are they slow rolling like the unstructured like capabilities and just making it happen in various places? Because I feel like the some of the answers I'm getting and some of the summaries, and it's like, man, I can't find that data in any kind of structure anywhere. Like, is this frame.ai like in action? Are we feeling that already inside of the portal in places?
It's possible. It's very, very possible. I think what you're pointing at is the next challenge for us, which is something around citations. Christopher O'Donnell was out there talking about data AI. Love his content. One of the things he talks about is you got to have that reference to the raw data, and that's the thing we want to build like a really, really robust system for. So I don't think any of that is rolled out, but you might be learning things from it through insights on the record and that sort of thing. We're experimenting with a lot.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm gonna start showing some objects because we can't have this
Okay.
without making sure people are aware that this stuff is here, right? And so we're in the data model area of under the data management area of HubSpot. And we've got our CRM objects, some sales objects, some activities. Um, Maybe you could help us, uh, like, what makes an object in the data model?
What makes it worth having? What happens
Well,
internally that turns it into an object?
no, like what? because I think it's especially when you get into the world of integrations and IT systems and data, and like you start to run into some very different definitions of the word
Mm,
object, right? Obviously, I don't know if this is one of those places where you have an opinionated CRM like we talk about, but objects, at least in a user interface perspective of HubSpot, you can actually like it's like speaking another language to like a back end integrator, right? They think like they expect to see like hundreds of objects, right? So how do you think about it in terms of objects for like usable for a user? Because we can see some of them here, right, in the data model, but we also have, objects over in the commerce, invoices, quotes, products. Like, so
yeah,
a lot of people struggle with like, okay, if it's an object, does that mean I have pipelines and custom properties? And it's like, well, most of the time, but sometimes not. So like, help us understand
yeah.
good ways to
That's
think
well
about the
said.
word object.
Yeah, that's well said, Chris. And there is a lot of stuff that is actually structured as objects. I think what HubSpot has made progress on, but we're not there yet, is how many of those do we want to expose, in what ways, and how much do we want to make that a consistent thing? How much is the investment to make it consistent worth it? So pipelines, for example. There are certain objects that have pipelines. There are certain objects that don't. When we built custom objects, we built custom object pipelines. That means that any object can have it, right? But now the question is, okay, let's say we wanted to have a pipeline on a contact. That probably replaces lifecycle stage, right? Or at least confuses the concept even further. So how do we want to help customers transition from lifecycle stage just as a property to a pipeline view? And is that the right move for us? So I guess what we're looking at is it's an interesting view because we're taking this giant universe of objects, as you pointed out. Almost everything in the nav actually could be represented or is represented as an object behind the scenes. Then this is sort of like the I care a lot about my HubSpot data view. So this is even more expanded than I would expect the average, sales leader to think about in terms of the objects that are available outside of HubSpot. But even these don't have all that level of consistency that we want to get to. So I think it's funny to talk about this after we were just talking about AI, but there's this one, massive flow of work that we are doing that's very, what's the future? Let's push the frontier. What's the next version of CRM look like? And how do we make sure we're there inventing it? And then there's this other version, which is we've also been around for however many years, a lot. And there's a lot of decisions that have been made that while they're not one-way doors, it's going to take somebody an awful lot of work to undo to get to consistency. So I guess that's the version that I feel like I always want to share with the partners and HubSpot customers who really get frustrated by this stuff. So I'll just leave it there.
Yes, I think that like the concept of confusing like the life cycle stages versus pipelines, like for a contact, confusing things that people already know, um, definitely makes sense from a perspective of like we got to undo some stuff or like equate some stuff at least before we just throw this thing in there. Maybe orders can be an example of that versus deals. But when it's things like it can help me with the challenge of like if products, like let's say products and line items as an example, um, often get represented as custom objects when people want to like manage the thing that we're delivering. um, can you shed any light on why like strategically or structurally it's not as easy as just adding pipelines to the product library?
I see what you mean.
right? Because I know there's some good reasons, and that's why I often make the case for products, line items, and deliverables is like, let's let the things be good at what they are and not expand them into these other use cases. Like, what are the risks like that, strategically, that when you just start adding in stuff like that, because I have to imagine that goes into why some of that hasn't been done for some of the objects. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some of it is internal to the way that the internal to HubSpot works, and that the those experiences. So line items, I've spent an awful lot of time with line items, and they are tough. We are always trying to make progress on those. I see a lot of people in the community with asks, and I hear you, and we are always trying to make progress on those. I'm putting together 2026 planning, and I promise you, we are not done thinking about or working on line items. I know we haven't made it at the progress at the speed that people want us to, but I promise we have. I think some of it is just around what's the customer value we want to do, we want to provide right now. And HubSpot, what makes HubSpot an interesting place to work is that that decision is made, can be made a bit more locally than you might imagine. Um, and uh, and so sometimes the right call is, yeah, we definitely want to get to this platform feel, but to do it for line items would mean all this other stuff that customers really need can't be done. Sometimes that's the right call. Sometimes that's not the right call looking back. But I can say it's discussed every time. Maybe like the flip side of what I was just saying about HubSpot being an interesting place to work is I think people would be shocked how often community posts are referenced, discussed, even if we can't do it. It's on people's minds a lot. So whatever the answer is for we could do products and line items. There's certainly a leads object. There's plenty of examples. The one thing I can promise, it's not as if people are just ignoring the problem.
Yeah, I think that's always surprises people new to the ecosystem, but definitely, I don't think a ton of people take it for granted. And I know a lot of people for sure that appreciate uh, how much you guys listen to, whether it's community posts or people commenting on LinkedIn or in Sprocketeer. And it's always fun. Like, it's probably just because enough people are mentioning it, but those moments where we mention things one day and then like next day it happens, it's like, oh man, they must be listening. So you guys have always done a great job. But that's to us. So you just brought up a wasn't planning on going this way, but I love this conversation right now. Like, as HubSpot expands internally, and I think cash flow is a great example. Like, the need to hit all these use cases brings up the need for new objects, like, constantly. Do you have any like hard and fast rules of like how you fit new objects in? Should it have its own view? Like, it sounds like you're very focused on the customer value, but like, is there any good measurement sticks of like, okay, this does enough different stuff and it's going to impact enough customer? Take me through that, kind of how you manage all those expectations internally.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things in there. One of them is um, it's always been very important to me that people can have HubSpot bend to their business and not the other way around. And so that actually put pressure on us to create objects, even if they weren't that different, because it was just the way that people wanted to be able to talk about the data inside of there and have it rhyme with their company. Um, that's why we did nicknaming. Um, and so now, for anybody who isn't up on that one, you can now rename contacts, you can now rename companies, deals, and tickets with the name that makes sense to you. And so we see people redoing deals to opportunities. If you came from Salesforce and you just want to call them opportunities and it just makes more sense for you, for your business, whatever, you can do that. And I love that. So I think first thing is make it a bit more flexible. Um, The second thing, I think it goes back to the beginning of the conversation. There is data that people really need that we want to help them unify. And so when we really understand what's the use case for the data, okay, cool, we're aligned. So I think you brought up line items. I think that the thing and the cash flow work, something we're really interested in is bringing revenue data into the CRM. I think there's opportunity to help people manage their billing flows. There's also opportunity to just represent that data in your CRM so that your sales folks know what they bought last time, your customer success folks know how frequently they buy, or what have you, how valuable they are as a customer, or something like that, without it just being kind of jammed in as a single property in the CRM. So once we identify that opportunity, then there's an awful lot of discussion. I wish it was a nice framework. There's an awful lot of sometimes messy discussion about what's the simplest way for us to help customers manage this stuff. And it's where we get into some friction. It's why custom objects are so important, but it's where we get into some friction with upmarket and with partners. Is partners tend to be brought in when there's a more complex scenario or you're coming from a more involved system. A lot of what HubSpot is going to build and will continue to build is for that like 25-person company that wants to grow. They've got something, but they're kind of like, what don't we know? Like, can we look to HubSpot as a guiding light just to put us on best practices, solid rails for us to grow? And so we're still in discussion about revenue data and what the best way is to store it without making people jump through a lot of hoops and manage a lot of that process. Sometimes, I'm just going to keep going here, sometimes we will manage that process. And so like Commerce Hub definitely is looking to do some of that for people. One thing that I heard a bunch of feedback around when we released the object library that I don't plan to change is not all of the new objects we release have to have custom apps in HubSpot that are attached to them. Sometimes it's just going to be, this is a type of data we think that you as a customer might really want to bring into HubSpot, or that an integrator really wants to bring into HubSpot, and we want it to have a safe sort of first class place for that data to land.
I like that a lot. And it begs the question of the object library and the advent of that last year. And so if this is your first time hearing about the object library, I wouldn't be surprised. But you guys delivered appointments, courses, listings, and services, right? I actually got to do a great unboxing with Harker, like the day or two after like it came out. It was great. And a big part of that was these data model like builds or templates per industry, right? And it definitely set the stage for like, oh man, like this is what's kind of been missing, because so many people from free up to enterprise, right? The data model is something that is very challenging to get right if you're not like a data like technical person, right? And seeing this to where it would suggest these components of the data model to start with. But there was some early conversations, like maybe this wouldn't be the end of those objects. Like we're going to keep going. We were going to, come up with more industry templates. So I would love to, whether it's specific to those plans or just in general, like what has the addition of these objects and these templates like taught the team? Like what have you guys learned from that process?
Oh my goodness. Oh, great question. A lot. So the first thing that's coming to mind is The ask that I had was that those objects represented the new framework and not the old one. I'm sure everybody has seen or saw it when Kyle Jepsen had this like deck that he was sharing that has all the different objects with the checks and the red X's and stuff about what features it supports. And that the existence of that deck drives me nuts, right? And so my ask was, let's make it so that these new ones that we're rolling out are green across the board, and that all future ones that we roll out are green across the board. It's almost hard to talk about it, in terms of externally what that ask internally means. And I'm really proud of the work that some of the folks on the team, Maggie, who I know you talk to all the time, has been part of this show, and also Mac Baylor, who is on the technical side. But just the amount of work that they did to understand all the pieces that would need to come together to make that happen, it was a massive effort, and also a learning experience about how people would then pick it up and use it in ways that we didn't expect, because it had a pipeline, because it was part of workflows out of the box and that sort of thing. There were places that didn't play well. There's places we're still working on making it play well, but the idea is that once we plug a gap, we're plugging it forever. Another thing we learned was releasing those new standard objects could cause conflicts. And I don't need to go any deeper into the problem, I suppose, but we did have to give ourselves many months of moratorium on releasing new objects until we could clear that. We wanted to give all of our partners and customers a chance to update their flows to make sure we weren't causing any data issues. That expired in June. I will say that I think the pace on templates, I'm going to switch to templates for a second. That was so much work that went into defining those templates. I still think there's a lot there. And some of it is just which templates should we really go into. And that's still being discussed. But I'm also, you brought up the screen a second ago, I'm really excited about the promise of the Breeze, Breeze recommendations, Breeze data model recommendations is a really exciting space for me. And my focus right now is making those data model recommendations something that can be sort of like the front door from a data configuration standpoint for all customers. And I want to expand the powers within it. So something, Chris, that that's been a challenge for forever in setting up a CRM is some people want to talk about the data model. Some people have no idea what you're talking about when you say data modeling or objects or whatever. And our goal here is to get to a world where you tell us what goals you have, what reports you want, what success looks like, and then we build all the stuff underneath it to support it. And the stuff that you're showing on the screen right now is just the beginning of us sort of learning in that space.
Yeah, this is very exciting. I agree. And it feels like it's very hard for me to understand like how you guys continue to like nail a template like in a way that actually serves a large portion of the customer base in the way that they actually need it solved for their business. And they're like, there's so many, whether it's across verticals, across regions, across like stage of the business. Are they in grow mode? Are they in scale mode? Right. And I remember unboxing it with Harker. The two things I learned is like there was an uh-oh. It was like, okay, we're introducing some properties here that very possibly already exists in the portal. But let's hit that real quick, because I think so much of the balance or challenge that this is where a lot of people do take HubSpot for granted in what's happening. And it's like, the balance between net new HubSpot customers and what they need, where all of this stuff is like so good for the new users versus all of the because you guys are so good at listening to the customers too and giving them what they want. It's turning into such a different conversation depending which group you're talking to. Like, is that as simple as like kind of a case by case basis that you guys got to deal with that, or is it, we try to serve this group, we try to serve everybody? Like, how are you when it comes to these because this, right? Like data model, something like this doesn't apply to likely doesn't apply to the 250,000 customers that already have HubSpot. Or are you seeing people use this oh, I've been using companies, contacts, and deals. I'm thinking about doing post sales stuff. Are we seeing all the use cases here?
Yeah, you're unraveling it live, and it's really fun. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And so we built it with a help you get started fast mentality. That was the point. It was mostly additive. But as you know, knowing the HubSpot default schema the way you do, actually for both new customers and existing customers, you need additive and subtractive. Whatever the word is there, reductive, I don't know. We actually need something that says, these are the properties you need, and these are the ones you don't. And so you're not gonna look at them anymore. To be able to talk with this tool or the HubSpot Copilot or whatever and say, hey, we're actually going through a pivot. Here's all the details on the pivot. Can you help me change my data model? Can you just show me how you would evolve the data model to reflect what I'm talking about here? That is the next stage. This absolutely works for evolving a current portal. But I think the biggest problem that a lot of existing customers who really know HubSpot have is I've also built up a lot of cruft and I can't find the time to go through and unravel all that cruft so I can clean it up. I've actually been working on that for a very long time. We released something, might have been earlier this year, Rachel would know, where we made it possible for our customers to archive more properties. It used to be really, really hard. We intentionally made it hard. It used to be a little bit too hard. The number of properties that have been removed since we made that change. So for context, it would look at the way you're using it across the portal, and if it wasn't going to break everything, it would let you do it. So we had to go through and sort your usages, is what we call them, into problematic versus non-problematic. Anyway, the number of properties cleaned up since then is well into the hundreds of thousands. It's massive, and that still requires an admin to go and do it. I think the future leveraging Breeze is to figure out, okay, I never took the time to do this. Can you just remove everything from my HubSpot portal that I don't need? Make sure I approve it before you do it.
Gosh.
But I would really like to do that. We need to do a better job at unboxing of not giving you too much. We're going to do that. But also everybody needs that constant cycle running in the background.
Yeah, that would be an amazing thing for sure. I think that's where we get really excited about what's happening right now related to AI. Because those are the things, it's just the complexity reaches a point where humans just either don't have time or they don't have the willpower. They're busy day to day. They know they need to do it. Now it's weighing on them mentally. We're just not equipped. And all that stuff goes into the 50% adoption rates and all this stuff. And what I'm seeing from Breeze right now, not only in general, but here, just being able to put things together in a way that I just communicated in one sentence, right? And a thing that has me really excited is the Breeze Copilot rebuild. And this is really cool. I should be talking about this this data model recommendation. Like, man, everybody should be checking this out. Like, we got pipelines, we got association labels, and all these
Yeah.
objects exist in the system too. I've just renamed some stuff. Like in this portal, I renamed contacts to friends because I needed to represent AI collaborators just as much as human collaborators. Every other portal is like, all right, let's rename them humans. But this one, I was like, oh, I need a place for the AI guys. So what am I going to call? All right, friends it is. Um, but in terms of getting coached by AI around the system, look at that. I've applied everything and it just built it all. Uh, okay, we won't. So much is possible here. But I'm excited about on the mobile app. You can press the microphone to talk to Breeze. Tell me about, like, do you have any advice for how people should be thinking about that, like, exchange? Like, because some of my advice for admins is like onboarding just completely changes in terms of step one, connect all the data. Step two, teach people how to tell Breeze what they want. Like, can it be as simple as that, you think?
Well, that's a great question. Just to finish the thought on what you showed a second ago, I think everybody should take a spin through the data model recommendations, new customer or not, just to see ideas. You can throw it away. You don't have to accept the changes, but it's just interesting to see. I find it very interesting, and you can get as detailed as you want in the prompt, and see what it puts out. Okay, the next thing I would say is some people think about HubSpot as a piece of software. It's just like a CRM. It holds these things. It's got these screens. I think in this AI world with Breeze, the way to think about it is it's like it's like an intern, a really smart one who's infinitely patient and can go and get anything about your business for you that you want. That's where we want to get it to. And I think it'll, intern is maybe not aspirational enough. Like I think we want to get it to a point where you could say that's my marketing exec's chief of staff, right? It's not going to make these creative leaps that you hire great people in your business to do, but it is going to tirelessly go and do the thing that they maybe spend hours a day doing right now, whether that's cleaning data, connecting data, sifting through it in different ways to try to find an interesting insight. And I think all of us just need reps exploring it. So something that we did behind the scenes, we did not release it, but I like talking about it, is that data model recommendations. Something we learned from customers and partners is they almost always start at a whiteboard, just mapping it out, the basics, and they've got circles and they've got lines. And sometimes now that they've adopted our language, they'll have a line that's labeled and all that stuff. And I said, these models can take pictures. They can accept multimodal input. Can we try it? And we tried it and it nailed it first time. So that you could take a lucid chart or something that you've been collaborating on. Here's the list of properties for this object, and here's the line between this box and this box, and here's how we want to label it. And you can give that to Breeze, and it'll go build you that data model. And it's just a different way of thinking about the interface between the work that you're doing all day on your business and the piece of software that you use to store certain parts of it. It's like anything you're talking about, your call recordings, your meeting notes, whatever. We hope that you're going to share that in a way with HubSpot, because that's valuable context that it can help bring back up later and help you make connections and great decisions and evolve your data or whatever.
But you said you didn't release that, right?
No, not
Okay.
yet, not yet. It has not been where we've been focused to date, but we have a bunch of like internal only app pages that I can use to test it out, which I enjoy doing.
Awesome. And that makes sense too. And that's what I try to help people understand, like the world of MCP, and we're connected to Claude and ChatGPT. Like if you can do it over in this spot, and we know it's AI enabled, and then you have Breeze, which is using a lot of the same tools, but now in the context of your business, it's like we're probably not as far away from all of these really crazy good use cases, because as the LLMs get better, then Breeze and HubSpot gets better, and it's really fun. It's a fun time to be alive right now. If you've been dealing with, specifically, if you've had all these challenges, like mapping specifically is one of those things that's on everybody's list of things they should be doing, and they're not doing it, right? So now it's getting to be easier than ever in terms of, in a couple weeks I'm going to be with Joshua Oakes, how you go from discovery call and then you input the call into mapping tools, and then there, like there's your process map and there's your data model. So that's very exciting to think that we could go from there to like HubSpot building. Um, you can kind of already do it with MCP, not creation of new objects, but yeah, we're not that far off, people, right?
Well, so one of the first things I did with the HubSpot MCP server is run what I call the data model review. Just take a look at my data model, take a look at where I have data, take a look at how it's connected, give me some recommendations. This is like sort of what I'm going for. And I didn't give it a ton of context. It was a portal that was a complete mess, just like one of those mess around portals. And it came back with really interesting, like just well structured input that I could read, like in a table or whatever, and then feedback on what was really going on with the data. That's the kind of stuff that when I find that, it's like we have to expose that to the customer, because even though MCP is the new thing, I don't want all of our HubSpot customers to have to know what MCP is in order to get the benefit out of it. And when they're sitting there with the blank chat window, they're thinking like, now how am I supposed to use this thing? There's so much that we can raise the we can raise all the boats by giving people a way in here. And yeah, I think AI has this, like, we could just talk about the tactical aspects of getting to clean data. I talked to somebody in Inbound maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago, who said they were maybe 2 years away from being able to use a new CRM because their data was so bad. Not anymore. Not anymore. I can fix
Yeah.
it in an hour. We talked to somebody last year, actually, who was talking about how they inherited a company's database that was missing a really key field in terms of who that customer is, the company, who the company is. Do they do the supplier? Do they do the, I don't know, translation layer? I think it was like the tile industry or something like that. They had the domain. They were hiring somebody to go and open up all those domains and then go and look it up and then fill in the field, right? You could do that with smart properties. Now in 5 minutes, it'll cost you $5. So the tactical piece here is incredible. But what I'm also really looking forward to is when it has the data and it has the context on your business. Um, the challenges of, hey, I just onboarded this new person, and in 6 months they'll really understand what we're doing, and hopefully they have the right conversations with the right people on my team to get them going and all that. Like the challenge of, let's make sure this key insight goes across the business so that everybody can adopt this new you know positioning statement or something like that. Those days are going to be rear view. The best companies will know how to just focus on the biggest challenges that face the business and make those human to human connections, and then they'll know how to use AI to do so much of the rest that today just takes a lot of time and it's real messy.
Yeah. Um, oh, well, I appreciate you going long with me today. A little long right now, but I got one more question. are there any like challenges that really have you guys stumped right now that you would love to hear somehow? Like if you had a magic wand, you would get like feedback from like 1,000 customers on this one topic or one challenge that you guys are trying to solve right now. Is there anything like that going on?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. Um, I will pick. I'll pick two. One of them is associations are incredibly valuable in this world. They provide the contextual glue of how things are connected. Those we definitely made inroads. That's one of the ways that we're using unstructured data is to help automate those.
Yes.
But there's still a long way to go. They're still not really that well understood. And so if people have thoughts on what I guess what the next version of associations look like for them, what the problems are that they're running into today that they wish they would have solved, that would be very, very helpful for me to focus on the right problems. Um,
So
and
are you
then,
coming at that from a perspective of like, because my feeling is like people just don't know they exist. They don't know, like, this is where we come back to the data model issue, right? Like, if you don't know how to relate things to each other and why you should want all 5 of these contacts associated to a deal, that's where we start to pull back from like the best cases or use the best practices of, oh no, one deal, one contact, one company. Like when you ask that, is that because for me, I think like there's just not enough people using it. Like it's very functional in the way it is. It activates so much of the rest of the HubSpot platform. And my advice to people is always like, no, we're going to do this manually, like quite a few times so you can understand why these things need to be associated. And then we can get to the automation of all that stuff. So is that a way, like, are you thinking there's lack of adoption because of like the functionality? Is it hard to get to? Like, so where's that challenge coming from?
yeah, it's actually all the above. There's some amount of just not understanding that that's how it works, or that's something that they should be doing, and then some amount of well, I know I'm doing it. I know this other person's doing it, but I know Chris down the hall, he doesn't do associations at all. He doesn't care. So that means the data, if it's not perfect, then I don't know if I can trust it really. And so I end up using something else, or I end up using some workaround, like you were saying, some kind of automation to like slap these things together. But it's not quite the perfect version that I'd like to get to. So
Okay.
there's a discovery version, a version of this. There's a usability version of this, but there's also what I would love, I guess, more than anything to hear from people is this is an association that you all already had the data. Like HubSpot already had the data to make this connection. You just still forced me or my rep or whoever to go in and click the button. Why? The stories I want.
Okay. Okay. Said
So,
you had a
so
second thing?
yeah. So, well, yeah, I have about 20, but one that's on my mind is associations. The second one is on event data. So specifically like behavioral event data. Behavioral event data was already really important. In this like AI world, it becomes even more interesting because it's incredibly high volume. It's hard for us to like step back and see the pattern. It's really not hard for Breeze to see the pattern. And so what I would love is to see more people saying, oh, this is really interesting data that going back to your question about how do we get to that 360 view, this is really interesting data that I have about my customer, my ideal customer. This is an attribution pattern that I have learned really works. How do I get that data into HubSpot and get that mapped against more people? Like, how do I do that? And we have custom events. We have HubSpot events. It's what you can use to trigger workflows off of. But I still think that system is underutilized. So I think that one's a very similar question of Do people know that it exists? Do people have that data, but they're using a different system for it? And if so, what's the gap for them? That's what I want to know.
Oh, well, I think you're right. This is like a weekly series, like written all over it to get through those other 18 challenges that's on your mind. But no, seriously, I really appreciate you coming out and spending time with us today. I do think in a lot of spaces, education and awareness of what kind of data we can now uh, put in HubSpot is paramount right now, even throughout the partner ecosystem. So that's why we're here doing this. And yeah, appreciate you joining the cause and making sure we get that word out.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me ramble. Thank you for being a tireless champion for HubSpot and our growing data model. We got a long way to go. I can't wait to talk to some people at Inbound about all the things that we're currently working on that I can't show you. But it's fun times indeed.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a different world at Inbound. Very excited to see it, and I appreciate the kind words. And likewise, we appreciate the work you and your team are doing to just bring all this stuff into being. And yeah, man, appreciate you so much, and we'll see you next time.